So every week we audit stores and we find that they have an enormous amount of apps. Founders usually resort to finding solutions to their conversion problems with apps, and it's not always the right way to do things. Apps don't fix conversions. They can improve them if done correctly and strategically, but conversion problems are structural. And here's a real store that proves it. This example is taken from a custom shirt brand. It had a solid catalog, it had real reviews. Apps were getting in the way of buyer journey. They were causing too many distractions at those crucial decision moments. So here's what we usually see, right? So conversions dip, and then basically founders open up the App Store in search for quick fixes. Some of the usual suspects are a Popup app for email capture, offering a discount, a chat app for support, which is great, but only if it's built to answer questions that your customers are actually asking. Another common one is a discount tab, a trust badge, or an urgency timer. These can work if they are legit, but they have to, again, be placed strategically. Typically what we see, is 3 months later, we have a slower store and noisier pages and pretty much the same conversion rate or worse. So one rule on this channel is that every number you see here is either measured on a real store or calculated live on screen. Most CRO content doesn't do that, and that's the point. So diving into the mini audit here, there was a custom shirt brand, had a premium product. It was selling shirts that were priced at $100 plus, and they had plenty of great reviews, right? So they had 5-star reviews, nearly 200 on some products. They had really good product photography and a really solid brand identity, which is everything that you need. So there's demand for the product, okay? What we saw was that the product page was riddled with widgets, pop-ups, apps, and it was causing major distraction. So a quick little mock-up here, because I'm not gonna name names. As you can see here, we've got your product form and it has the price and then has 5 or 6 options to configure the shirt. Okay, so collar size, fit, a little monogram option, cuff style and buttons, all optional. All right. And the add to cart button was below the fold. Okay. But what you'll also see here in bright colors is, 3 widgets competing for attention. So we have the widget 1, which is the 10% off widget that obviously opens up the pop-up again, asking for an email in return for a discount. We've got the accessibility widget there, which is great, but it can be placed in other places, so it doesn't actually impact the user journey. And we've got the chat widget. So the chat widget was actually helpful because sometimes people might want to ask questions about how to configure the perfect shirt based on their sizes, etc., etc. But the questions and the answers that the chat widget and the AI chatbot gave were irrelevant and not helpful. So what's that telling us? Probably just remove it because it's distracting from the primary action. So what we're looking at here is that every floating widget is basically stealing attention from that primary action. So basically what all of this means is that every kind of option or widget is competing for attention. It's stealing attention from the primary action, which is, we want people to buy the product. For example, the shopper is mid-task, customizing a $109 shirt, and then 3 widgets are popping up and then just, taking their attention elsewhere. Not ideal. Okay, especially if we're looking to convert the customer. So each one was basically installed to help. I spoke with the founder, but in reality, they were all competing with the purchase. The second one here is the welcome kind of ambush. We've all seen it. We all hate it, unless the offer is really, really valuable to us at that time. So this one in particular fired immediately on page load. So that could be on the product page, that could be on the home page. But the key here is that it loaded before a single product has been seen or a collection was navigated to, or, the customer really knowing what it is that you sell. And this next part was just not fitting for a premium shirt brand and the type of customers that shop on that specific store. And you can see here that the no button is written to almost make you feel foolish for clicking it. right? So it's a little bit of a trap, and it's not the way we want to present ourselves. Someone said, hey, do you want a discount? And then they said, or would you rather say, no, thanks, I'll pay full price? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make you feel good. So on to finding number 3, the real problem here. So the add to cart button was well below the fold, okay, on most devices, especially mobile. We had color grid, we had fit options, and 3 optional drop downs stacked kind of above the add to cart button. And a buyer who has already decided that they wanted the product without the optional items has to scroll to find the button. So even a sticky add to cart that is always there when the actual add to cart button is not in view would have fixed this issue. But in reality, no app really fixes this. It's the structure of the page that needs attention. So the overall lesson here is that apps add a layer on top of the page. Conversion leaks live in the page itself. So hierarchy, structure, trust, all of that is important. And stacking layers on top of a broken structure makes the structure even worse, as well as user experience. So here's what I do if this is what you're seeing on your store. I would analyze the buy zone, make sure that there is one primary action. Okay, and make sure that that is visible without scrolling. Second is on the page structure itself. We want to make sure that all essential choices are up top and within view, and then optional ones are almost made secondary or, like I said, optional. We don't need people to have to click into loads of little things in order to actually get to the add to cart button if those loads of little things are optional and they don't actually need them. Item number 3 is the interruptions. Pop-ups should only trigger on negative behavior and not on page load. This is distracting, it's annoying, no one really likes it. So every widget that is installed from an app needs to earn its place before it's installed, or just completely remove it. Then, once the structure is solid, you have a great baseline, and then you can solve additional problems that apps can only solve. For example, the chat widget. Dive into customer emails and figure out patterns that customers are actually asking, and then build that into your chatbot so that it's actually useful for the customers when they're shopping your products. That's just one example, but I'm sure there are uses for other applications out there. But again, structure, get that right, and then worry about the rest. So I hope this was useful. Open up your product page, count what's fighting your buy button, and figure out how to fix that first. If you need help, just give us a shout. And if you want to uncover more, just put your store through storesignal.app. It's completely free. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.